But in the front seat, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I'm like, this car doesn't move until you put that on. Mainly because the car will annoy the crap out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, when they first did that, I'll never forget my grandfather. You know what he did? He took that seatbelt, he buckled it with no one in it, and then got in the car.
Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right. Protect your patience. Day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right.
So today, Donna, we're going to talk about something that drives me absolutely crazy. And no, it's not my wife. So let's talk about the premise that a strategy for cybersecurity is just to do the bare minimum. Because that's kind of what got us here in the first place, is that people just don't want to do any more than what they have to do. And so the government has to step in and say, we've got to force you to do more than the bare minimum. And heck, in some cases, it's to force you just to do the bare minimum so that you can protect other people, because you won't take the necessary actions to protect other people. We have to step in and put things in place.
Yes, I concur. It's that we talked about it before. You know, if you're just doing the bare minimum of HIPAA, you're no longer securing patient data. If you are looking to do what many consider the bare minimum, which, by the way, what they consider the bare minimum is not indeed the actual bare minimum.
Yeah, that's confusing.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah. So, which is a perfect segue into the PriceSec Bootcamp. If you want to know more about what the bare minimum is and how to do more than that, then you can join us May 13th through 16th in Stone Mountain Park in Stone Mountain, Georgia, for the PriceSec Bootcamp.
Yeah, they have a really cool Evergreen Conference Center there. You can come the weekend before, bring the whole fam, do Mother's Day. It's great fun in the park, and then we'll close you up in a room and talk about HIPAA for 4 days.
Yep. HIPAA, privacy and security, bunch of fun.
And that's what PriceX stands for, by the way. Privacy, security, rammed together.
Yeah.
PriceSec.
Because we're
Somebody
cool like
asked that today.
Oh, really? Yeah. Got to be cool like that. Run words together. Right.
So, where do we go to sign up to get more information, David?
Man, it's all over the place. You go to PriceSecBootcamp.com, thehippabootcamp.com, helpmewithhippa.com. Just go to any of those and you'll find it.
Yeah, cardinhq.com.
Yeah.
It's there. It's everywhere.
It is everywhere. And need to be posting it on LinkedIn pretty soon if we're not already.
Yeah, by now we will be. I was working on that today. And if you're a member of Cardin Club or HIPAA for MSPs, you get very, very special pricing, ridiculously steep discount. And you can get your special code logging into the website for members, and everything you need will be there, and you get to bring yourself for a way better price. So, join the club.
Yeah.
In the club.
And we always have CEUs that we apply for, and normally we'll get them closer to boot camp time. So if you have CEUs.
Yeah, I'm being pressured to get that done. That's my next thing. But yeah, we apply with the Compliance Certification Board to get pre-approved CEUs and get a certificate from them. They evaluate our agenda and what we're discussing. And last year we had like 25 CEUs because, this is intense. And there'll be even more this year. So you can get a boatload of them. And we've never had a problem with people turning it in for other CEUs because it's been approved by a third party. So there you have it. Unless they won't accept anything but their own, and then I can't help you.
Yep, can't do anything about that. And also if you have the CHMSP certification, you can apply your CEUs to that for your renewal, so you can get that done. So lots of ways to handle that. All righty, let's dive into it, because I can already feel the soapbox under my feet.
Ramble.
So let's talk about the bare minimum strategy, because I think it's going to be important with things going on right now. And we just talked about the NPRM. We have a new administration coming in. I guess that's on hold. I don't know, man. Lots of wait and sees happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
what
are you going to do?
Well, the question of what are you going to do is a good one. I would follow up by say, do what you're supposed to do.
I like that idea.
Just do the right thing. You got to remember, this is not about privacy and security. It's about patient care. And if you keep that in the forefront of your mind, because we say it every time, don't worry about the compliance piece. Don't worry about the privacy piece, the security piece. Worry about the patient care piece and work your way backwards. How are you going to take care of patients' data and everything else that is wrapped around that? You do that through making sure you have a very robust privacy and security program and you meet compliance requirements. All those things do that.
Yeah. And a lot of it gets back to that whole bare minimum thing is, everybody's just going to keep doing what they've always been doing, which is not working.
Mm-hmm.
If it were working, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in the healthcare sector, constantly under attack and successful. We may be constantly under attack, but it's the success of the attacks and the impact of those attacks that are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We may never be not under attack. We may never have where there's no successful ones, but we need to minimize the successful ones and then even further minimize the impact when they do occur. And we're not doing a good job of that across the sector as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole bare minimum thing, some people they're really trying hard, and I get that. And those, they're working hard to prevent it. They're prepared if it happens. They know what they're going to do. That's as good as it gets. But the whole sector isn't at that place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we're a long way from the majority doing that. And in some cases, you and I both see this all the time. There's some cases where people aren't even interested in doing the bare minimum. Like they're doing nothing. And that's, that drives me nuts, because it's like, start somewhere, do something, and then just go up from there. And there's no strategy at all. It's just like, well, we can't afford to do it. Well, what can you afford to do? I don't know that. And I said this before we started recording, when you have a ransomware attack, you sure do find the money to deal with that. So how is it that you don't have the money to do cybersecurity, even basic stuff before that? It's, I just don't, I'm going to be critical of this, but I don't buy it, because I think you can do it. There's something there's a lot of things you can do that absolutely have no cost at all. So there are things you can do.
You're absolutely right. There are things you can do. We don't live in a world where we just get to say, well, we can't afford it. I can't afford to do security. Guess what? Then you can't afford to do technology.
Yeah.
That's the way you need to look at it.
Yeah. Just disconnect from the internet then.
Yeah. Just stop. Because, it's like, most of us are responsible when we drive an automobile. We take care of the automobile. We insure the automobile. We are careful not to hurt others. There's always the element, but it's responsible ownership.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need, is responsible ownership of everything. That's what we expect it's a societal thing, societal norms, and we don't expect enough from a cybersecurity standpoint for every single person and every single business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because we never had to until we had these problems. So everybody still thinks, well, I don't have to have a driver's license. I don't have to have insurance. I don't have to have road rules. I don't have to stop at stop signs. I'm just out driving in the pasture, which is where I learned to drive. And the biggest problem was don't hit a cow. And it is a thing, and that is the attitude that you have. But that also means you're only allowed to drive in the pasture, not out with the rest of us. And that's the biggest thing. And until we get that message across, which I don't know what else we can do, frankly. I mean, you and I have we're 10 years into this podcast.
Yeah,
I know. Freak out. Everybody freak out.
I don't think it's a matter of getting the message across. I think the message is out there. I think it's just people don't want to hear it. They, they stick their head in the sand. I don't want to deal with it. Maybe it's too complicated. And so if anything is complex and confusing, people just don't make a choice to do anything. And that's, in every area. They look at cybersecurity and like, I don't understand it. Like, I don't even understand it enough to know if somebody's doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they're just overselling me or underselling me, or so we're not going to do any of it. I don't know. I'm just taking a guess because I can't figure it out half the time myself. Even whenever I've tried to explain it to some people, not everybody, like you said, there are some folks okay, I understand you can't do everything. Perfectly fine. But we need to get you started on the path. Let's start with what you can do and move toward what you should be doing. Yes. And still people are like, well, we'll reevaluate that next year. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously?
Yeah. Really? So, that's kind of like, it gets back to the analogy that we use all the time, changing the tires or building the car while it's running. What you're doing is you're driving a vehicle with no safety around it, zero safety, and you're pegging it out, and you're not caring, and you're going to worry about putting in seatbelts and bags and all of the safety measures that are in place. You don't have any of those. You're in a little cheap go-kart flying down a highway. Ooh, maybe we should use that analogy. Here you are if you live in Atlanta, you would understand that you're on 285, which is also should be part of the Atlanta International Raceway, but it's not. But it is, and I can't imagine driving a little, basic go-kart that you made at home with the motor from the lawnmower. And
it's like driving one of those mopeds. I don't even know if they make those anymore, but
the scooters. Yeah.
No, worse than that is the ones that have the pedals on them. You ride the gas, you just keep pedaling.
You could pedal that's how it made extra energy. Yeah. I had a friend of mine in high school that had one of those, and I was like, no, I just can't be seen on that. But it's, if we still, we've got to get to where that bare minimum mindset goes away, because that's part of why we're looking at the NPRM and everybody's like, well, it's just going to go away. Hoping the regulations go away is not, I would like to not have the regulations. We're only having to increase the regulations because people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing.
To me, the regulations don't matter, because if the regulations go away, the threat does not. The bad guys do not go away. It's not like they go, oh, you're not going to have increased cybersecurity legislation this year. Okay, we'll back off until you do, so we can make it a fair fight. No.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. So our whole point here is, let's stop pretending that the bare minimum is a security strategy. No, it's a gamble, and it's like gambling. They always say that the house always wins. The house is always going to win some, but people do walk away with money. That's what gets everybody to come in. That ding, 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 ding is, the slot machine. Everybody runs and sees, okay, well, that one person, I'm not good at gambling at all.
Yeah. I think it's more like Russian roulette.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it is a very serious gamble with your business, but more importantly, the data that you hold on every single patient or the access you have to it or your ability to treat patients. So that if we can't provide care because we just gambled away our ability to do it with technology, and now we don't know how to do it without technology, that's part of the problem.
Yep.
So if we're going to get away from saying the bare minimum, we can't just wait it out and hope for it. Why don't we take a different approach is what I'm suggesting, is to say, what if, let's say they do pull back the NPRM. That's what everybody's hoping for. We all get that. I still wait for them to pull back the NPRM on the privacy rule, which they've never done. They've never officially pulled it back. They've never officially implemented it. But if we say, look, if we did the things that we were supposed to be doing, and they said clearly in the NPRM, most of what we're saying here is to clarify what you're supposed to be doing under the current rule. So why don't we do a better job of doing what we're supposed to be doing in the first place and then not have to have those regulatory changes that make it a much more narrow prescription for what you have to do? So how about let's just do that and then we don't need it? Yeah. I'm a fan.
I had a conversation last week with somebody who said the NPRM is going to make all the security rule stuff required. And I'm like, what do you mean you're going to make it all required? I'm like, because some of it's optional right now. I'm like, no, none of it's optional right now.
That's the problem.
And I'm like, that's why they're changing the terminology. I was like, no, it's always been required. So
yeah, and if you go read it, you would know that. If you go read it, you will see that it says addressable does not mean optional. Addressable means you don't have a prescriptive way to implement it. You need to look at what's required and then what would be appropriate in your environment. And it's not ever appropriate to not do it.
Right.
That's it. But see, there is part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so did they believe you when you said that?
Yeah. They were like, oh, really? Yeah, you might want to go look this up again. So, but
we still have people that think that what they did for meaningful use in the in 2008 or 2009 is what would work today as an SRA. No, it didn't work then as an SRA. It was inadequate at that time. And it even said what we are asking for meaningful use does not meet the requirements for HIPAA. That's why they changed it and said, have a HIPAA one. So, but anyway, nobody believed us then, and I guess they still don't believe us now, David.
I think this is like a lot of things in life where they don't want to do what they need to do until after the fact. And then they're, I don't have the budget for it now. And then as soon as something happens, they're calling you going, what do we need to do? Like, you need to do the same thing I told you last week you need to do.
And the week before that, and the year before that.
And they're like, how quickly can you do it? Oh, now all of a sudden you want it. What,
Yeah. Our work has become more complicated. But then people are like, I can't believe you've raised your prices.
Yeah.
Really? I'm doing more work, more complex work than ever.
Oh, yeah.
And it's now I should keep my prices low, which are already lower than what most people who are capable of doing what I do would be charging.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at, I mean, really and truly, it's not going back. If we just go back to 2019, right, and say, remember February 2019 is the first episode we did. I went and looked on Hiccup and saying, okay, this is how you do it. This is the how.
Mm-hmm.
You know, HIPAA's the what, Hiccup's the how. And then they made recognized security practices in 2021, and we're like, woo woo. Yeah. Now, like we've been telling you, you should adopt Hiccup and use it. It was ignored, granted, but now, look, you should use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got incentives. Why not?
Yeah, really.
Crickets. Then 2024, the cyber security goals, you know, CPGs, crickets. And even then, they followed, you know, they cross-referenced back to Hiccup.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd been even starting to try in 2019, you'd already have that investment in little bitty chunks. If you've been trying since 2009 when all this started, you would really have it in little bitty chunks. And it would be part of your normal operation. The problem is, if you never start, it just gets more expensive, both in resources and money.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, none of this stuff is ever going to get any cheaper than it is right now.
In resources and money. But if you will just rip off the Band-Aid, you know, get in there and do it. And I had some folks asking me, can you make a program so that we can do a little bit of our security risk analysis every month and finish it by the end of the year? No. It's supposed to be a moment in time, and you capture that moment in time, and you could do it over several weeks. Granted, it usually takes several weeks, but not the whole year, because what you gathered at the beginning of the year does not relate to what you're doing at the end of the year.
Right.
And it doesn't count. So, and that was the biggest problem. And that's what now we have the NPRM, because, you know, the tools have been there. The recommendations have been there.
Yeah.
The security rule, they've published fact sheets. They've done videos. We've done reviews of the videos and the fact sheets. We've even done reviews of the documents from NIST and OCR telling you how to do a security risk analysis. For free. We gave it away for free. People still say, well, nobody tells you how to do it. Or you're wrong. That's my favorite one. That's not what we really have to do. Okay. It's a message you don't want to hear, but it's the right one. So yes, either we embrace the things that are freely available and you know, do the reasonable and appropriate, figure that out and document why we think it's reasonable and appropriate. And then maybe then we don't need further regulations. That would be great.
Yeah.
But even if they do implement them, which we're probably going to have to do because people won't do it. I mean, we're supposed to be doing it now. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
So if we don't make it harder, the bare minimum people won't reach the bare minimum.
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar to your seatbelts in the car. You know, they came out, you didn't have to wear them for a while. And then it's, you know, some people wore them regardless. You know, they always wore a seatbelt. Yeah. And then some people didn't. And then they come out and say, well, now we're going to make it a law. You have to wear your seatbelt. And then that, you know, that went a whole nother direction. And here we are.
Well, but, you know, now people wear them out of habit. And in fact, when I get in a vehicle and somebody's not wearing their seatbelt, now in the back seat, I'm a little bit more lax. But in the front seat, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, it makes me nervous.
Yeah, I'm like, this car doesn't move until you put that on. Mainly because the car will annoy the crap out of me.
Yeah, when they first did that, I'll never forget my grandfather. You know what he did? he took that seat belt, he buckled it with no one in it, and then got in the car.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I wear them, and then, they got the sensors on them now. So if somebody's sitting in the seat, it knows if something's sitting there, and it has to be buckled and all this stuff. There's been a couple times where I had something heavy in the seat, and it's like ding, ding, ding. I'm like, dadgummit. So, but
now it would be asking my grandfather, "You got a stick person in there? Flat Stanley? What's in there?"
Yeah, I would hope people would do what they're supposed to do, and not just the bare minimum. But you know what? The bare minimum was never enough anyway. It never has been enough.
Yeah, but people they thought they were doing the bare minimum, and they weren't even doing that right, is what they're saying here.
No. So, I mean.
Yes, that's what they're saying. No, they weren't doing it right. You're not saying no to me.
No, I'm saying, it's even doing the bare minimum is a false sense of security.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I hear people that aren't even doing the bare minimum. They'll just say, for example, I'll just go out and get, XYZ antivirus and put it on the computers and I'll be fine. No, you won't be fine. And the thing is, you probably won't even know when you're not fine. Think of it like your health. How far can you go and you're not fine, but you don't know that you're not fine for a long time. And then when you finally figure out that your health is deteriorated, there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Mm-hmm. And it's your choice. It's your choice. But, there's one thing when you're impacting just yourself. Mm-hmm. But when you're impacting everyone, and in healthcare, we're impacting not only our business, but our patients, and sometimes even the entire community. Mm-hmm. And if it's big enough, it can impact an entire region.
Yep.
So what is it we want people to do, David? What is it we want them to do?
We want you to do what we tell you to do. Yeah. I mean, so I would say, certainly don't do just the minimum. You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait for the NPRM, whether or not it comes out or gets reversed, or any of that. Just do the work now. Mm-hmm. Do a voluntary compliance program for yourself.
Yeah, well, it's not even voluntary. Do the one that's currently obligated to do, and do it properly is really all we're asking anybody to do. Mm-hmm. That's all anybody's ever been asking. If you do that and then just simply add in the how to do it using the recognized security practices, HICCUP, HCPGs, that combo in some manner, use that. And even if you use some other framework like the CIS or the NIST or the Inky Dinky Doo.
That is not a framework.
That's not a framework.
People are going to be Googling the Inky Dinky Doo framework. It does not exist.
Well, technically HIPAA's a framework. They're all a framework. But whatever you're doing, just pick something, put a stake in the ground, and figure out where you're at and how you're going to need to move forward.
Well, by all means, do it. But the first step, please learn to start out on the right foot. Do a proper security risk assessment like that. That's in every single time we have an investigation from OCR and they come out with a settlement. Every single one. I don't think there's been a single one that's not had a problem with the security risk assessment.
Well, and that's why that's like the biggest chunk of the NPRM is about making it very specific when they should be done, how they should be done, and what they should include. Mm-hmm. And the two big things are an inventory of your data and an inventory of your technology. Mm-hmm. And how to go about that. And if we would do it, now, then we're either going to potentially avert having to have more regulations, best case, and worst case, be prepared for those regulations. Either way, you've got time now to invest a little as you go rather than waiting and it getting more and more expensive, both resources and financially. It's never going to get cheaper. David's right there.
No,
Just
it's
don't
not.
tell him.
Never going to get any cheaper than it is today. You might as well get started.
But, the other thing is document everything you're doing. Now, granted, there's the compliance, the proof of compliance, right? Everybody, we talk about having proof that you're doing it. But it's not just in a compliance setting that comes into play. Is, you need to know now, I need to know 5 years from now what I was doing right now. For a lot of reasons. Because if I've got something that I'm building right now, and then I continue to build on it, and then suddenly I want to do something new with the network, but I don't know why it was built that way or how it was originally intended, I got nothing. I just got to figure it out and hope it doesn't blow up too much. But if I had that documentation and I could go back, and we're not talking about these formal, write up the notes of the conversations that you've had and why you're doing what you're doing. That's it. Just do the basic, document your day. And I'm not every single day, but when you accomplish something, when you check something, when you make a new decision, when you include something, that's the time. And one other thing that has come up recently is if you document it and then you're no longer working there, other people will know what to do and what you did. And if it's not documented, then we're going to assume you didn't do it.
That's right.
Oh, you weren't doing your job. So guess what? If you do that documentation, you're proving you're doing your job. And even if you document, we sat down, we had a meeting and decided we still couldn't spend the money, document that. You were doing your job. We have evaluated it. We have thought about it. And we're going to do X instead of Y because of Z.
Right.
There you have it. So, this NPRM, this is your call to action. Either get started now, because it is going to change to some level, which is probably where we're going to end up in the middle somewhere, because I can't imagine that all of that will go through. I mean, there's several things in there that we don't expect will go through as they're written now. There's just too much.
Yeah. But it's going to be more than it is today. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you just do this stuff, you're doing what you're supposed to do today. It's going to be better if they make it, take it up a notch. It's not going to be that hard. This is what we've said all along, is that if you had started messing around with Hiccup in 2019, which is what we did, how can we apply it? How can we use it? How can we reference it? Started building it into our routines, and then when 2021 came around, it's like, woohoo, look, I told you we should have been doing this. Now we can take it to the next step. And then, CPGs comes around. Look, we already got that covered because we were doing this. But you have been doing it for years, a little at a time. And the longer you wait, the more you're going to have to do in a shorter amount of time. So it's not optional. It's you get to take the time to figure out how to make it happen in your environment, within your budget, within your resources, before somebody else gets to tell you what to do.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, because when something happens, whether you get investigated or you have a cyber event, you don't get to make those choices oftentimes. It's now on somebody else's timeline and they're spending your money.
And it ain't pretty.
So there we go, folks. There's your call to action.
Yeah, there you go. So just remember, bare minimum, not going to save you from breaches. It's not going to prevent stricter rules. In fact, it's going to cause those two to happen. Right? And
that's right.
If we do it and do it according to what all of the documentation tells you for the last 10 years, telling us what we're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
We have an episode that's 7 steps to doing the SRA, I think is what it is. And we take you through it. We explain it. We can't do much more.
No.
Except we continue to have the argument with people to explain that, yes, indeed, that is an SRA. And yes, it does take more time.
Yeah. Yeah. It is time consuming, but it's a necessary first step. You've got to do it. If you told me just to do an inventory of everything in my house right now, I'd be like, oh my gosh. But it has to be done. And guess what? If the place burned down, guess what the insurance company is going to ask me? Do you have an inventory of all your assets?
Yeah.
So again, it's better to do it before something happens than try to do it afterwards.
Indeed.
All right, folks. That's
right.
I'm always, yeah. All right, folks, that's our show for today. Thanks for listening. Be sure to join us again next week. And remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.